If I had $1 for every time someone said to me, Anthony, buy me a horse. How do I get involved? Should I buy a share? Should I buy a micro share? How do I get involved? How do I get involved? How do I get involved? Well, I'd be a rich man. But I'm going to share the ways to get in this industry without losing the house and what method best suits you. So listen in. Hello, hello, hello. It's not where we start, ladies and gentlemen. It's where we finish. I'm Anthony Gafa, and you're watching Unfiltered with Gafa. Today, we're going to talk about ownership of a racehorse. If I had $1 for every time somebody asked me how to get into the industry, how to buy a share, how to buy a racehorse, what are my options? I'd be a very rich man. So why not kick this off on educating our listeners on how to get into this amazing industry of horse racing? We've got people who are, should we say, on the other side of the fence. And what I mean by that is they go to the races and they have such a good time. And most of these people are punters. Now, nothing's wrong with a punter, but there are other options to get involved in the industry without having to outlay your hard-earned cash every week on punting on the races or betting on a horse to hopefully you get your money back, or if it's a good day, maybe make $1 or $2. One thing I've always said right from the beginning, even from my own journey, which I will share today, is always punt what you can afford to lose. And that's no different when it comes to ownership, whether it's a micro share, whether it's a share, or owning a stallion outright. There's no fixed returns. There's no guarantees. If anyone tells you that, you're in the wrong corner. My advice is if someone gives you a guarantee in investing in horse racing, it's time to find somebody else for advice. And that's what we'll also cover, how to get involved, from syndicators to bloodstock agents, what they do within our industry, and how you can reach out to them. First and foremost, I want to tick off all the options and my personal experience in most of them. So jumping straight in, what type of ownership requires the least amount of investment? It's called micro shares. And they're quite fashionable now. They've kicked off. They haven't been around for a hell of a long time, but it's a great way to get involved in the industry. You can buy a micro share for as little as $60, $100, $250. There are a lot of micro shares available, and there are people doing a good job within that space. As I said, the investment's not a lot of money, and it does get you involved. It gets you correspondence from the trainer, correspondence from the syndicator, and it's a great networking opportunity for a very, very tiny little investment. What type of returns can I expect with a micro share? Not a lot of money. You're investing $240, $560 odd, and the beauty of a micro share, that's what you're paying up front, and that covers you for the lifetime of your horse. There's no extra cost, no other expenses, whether it's adjusting or it's spelling in a paddock or in full work, your upfront cost covers everything. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a great networking opportunity, not much money to invest, and there's no ongoing expenses. You're simply going into a micro share for the entertainment side, for the networking opportunities, to be a part of the industry and follow your horse as opposed to punting on horses every week. So in a way, it's actually potentially going to save you money if you're a regular punter. And again, I'm not against punting, but this is a good opportunity for you to stay in the industry, get more involved in the industry without laying any ongoing expenses. One thing to note, within a micro share, everything is covered. So there's no need to select a jockey. There's no need to select a trainer. You don't need to insure the horse. It all comes in that initial investment up front. Me personally, I've never owned a micro share, but I think it's the best way to get in the industry if you're a newbie. Why would you invest a significant amount of money in buying a horse outright when you don't know the procedures and you have no networks? This is a great way to get started. So the next one we're going to be covering off is shares in a racehorse. Well, it doesn't have to be a horse that's already in work. You can buy shares in breeding stock. You can buy shares in yearlings that are up and coming racehorses, but we'll cover shares. The beauty of owning a share is you can elect to own the percentage you want to own. You can own 1% of a racehorse, 2.5%, 5%, 10%, or you can take half of the horse if you like. Shares are ran by syndication companies who are a professional organisation. Typically, syndicators are experienced campaigners. A lot of them had started off by owning horses, racing horses themselves, and they loved the excitement that horse racing brought to them, so they went off and started syndication companies. How much capital is required when investing in shares? That one depends on you as an investor. If you purchase a horse and you're looking at taking 10%, and we'll talk about a yearling because that is the largest market when it comes to buying a share. So a yearling being a 1-year-old that hasn't raced, or it's probably not going to race for a year or two, you invest in the ownership of that horse. So you officially own a percentage of that horse. Now, you can take whatever percentage you like and whatever you can afford to invest. And how much you pay for that share is determined by the value of the horse. There are ongoing expenses, and then there's the investment of purchasing the horse up front. So if we talk about buying a $100,000 yearling and you're looking at taking a 5% share, well, it's 5% up front. And then there's the ongoing costs. You'll share the costs. You'll share 5% of the ongoing costs, from transport to vet bills to training to adjustment and everything in between. If you decide to take a larger share, well, that's all relative on how much money you're going to put in. The returns will be a lot more greater than owning a micro share because you get 10% of the prize money. If the horse goes on to be a group winner or a city class horse and its prize money is $1 million, well, you get 10% of the $1 million if you're a 10% owner. But don't forget, you must only invest what you can afford to lose, because not everyone's a winner when it comes to owning horses. The ongoing expenses are transport, training, adjusting, when the horse is pre-training before it goes to the stables. There's all these expenses that you do need to take into account. And it's nice if your prize money can cover all your expenses. A lot of people seem to think that with prize money, when owning a share or owning a horse outright, it gets put into a pool. No, it's not like a sinking fund. Prize money is paid within the next week. So if you invest in a colt and it goes on to be a stallion, and that stallion is sold for $20 million, and you're a 10% owner, well, you receive your $2 million in dividends. So when I do invest in a share, do I need to organise my own insurance? Can I select who rides the horse? Do I pick what jockey? Do I choose the trainer? Do I decide where it goes when it's adjusting? The answer to all those is no. The reason you're investing in a proven syndication company is because you're trusting their judgment. You're trusting their judgment to buy the right yearling. You're trusting their judgment to look after the horse, the well-being of a horse, and to place the horse where it can win with the right trainer. You want to go with a syndication company that's got a proven track record of winning. Make sure the communication's right up to scratch. Make sure you're getting the reports from the jockey and the trainer, because you are still investing a lot of money to own that percentage of your horse. So you're well within your rights to be updated and understand how the horse is travelling. Shares come in all shapes and sizes, and the ownership group also come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes you've got people wanting to get into the industry and it's more of a networking opportunity, meeting new people. Some investors are wanting to get to know the horse racing industry, and before they invest too deep, they want to get their head around how horse racing really works. And the information you receive from the syndicator will allow you to get a good insight on the industry. I actually purchased the share, 10% share in a horse called Our Contender. That's how I got into the industry. And I had a good time. Well, actually, I had a great time. We had a bit of a punt. We won some money. We lost some money also. So it was the excitement of all that got me involved. Some stallions have sold for $30 million. But I don't want to use that as a hook, because the majority of people who invest in shares will lose money. So you need to ensure you can invest what you can afford to lose. My advice on shares is you're doing it for the experience. You're doing it for a networking opportunity to meet new people and to learn about the industry to determine whether you want to start owning horses outright. That's what I took out of it. So now we're going to cover owning a horse in its entirety. So basically purchasing the horse on your own, or owning it on your own, because You still don't need to be an expert to go and select a horse because you can engage a bloodstock agent, and we will cover that later on. So this is owning a horse outright. Very different to all the shares, micro shares. This is where you are the decision maker on a horse to a degree. Now, the type of capital needed when owning a horse in its entirety depends on what you're willing to invest and how. Whether you're buying a yearling, whether you're buying a mare in foal or an empty mare and getting her in foal, or you might go and buy a ready racehorse, a horse that's already had some success. You know what you're getting. You know if the horse is sound. If it goes and wins in town by 5 lengths, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. If this horse is racing in the country and getting beaten, you're going to pick it up for a bargain. But you do get what you pay for at that level. So the amount of capital is determined by what you want to buy. I must go on to explain, the more you spend doesn't necessarily mean the better horse you're going to get. The beauty of horse racing is once the gates open, the horse doesn't know how much you paid for it. It doesn't matter who you're competing against. Whatever horse can deliver on the day will win the race. Some people have invested in horses that are $1,000. It's gone on to win millions. Some people have invested in horses that are $2-3 million and they never win a race. How do you know what horse to buy? Well, if you're new to the industry, my advice is engage with a bloodstock agent because they're the experts. The ongoing expenses are things such as training fees, getting the horse broken in, pre-training, when the horse is in work. There are so many ongoing expenses that you need to take into account. When a horse is in work now, the ongoing expenses vary from about $4,000 a month to about $8,000 a month, depending on where the horse is located. If a horse is adjusting, it's approximately $50 a day. Adjusting means that the horse is in a paddock having its well-earned rest. To get a horse broken in, you're looking at paying $3,000. The breaking in process is vital. That's setting a horse up for life. We will cover that in a later podcast. But now that we've got this horse, we've purchased the yearling, it's now educated and it's now 2. The amount you're investing on a monthly basis is determined on where that horse is. If the horse is based in the city, you could expect to pay between $7,000 and $8,000 per month. If the horse is based in the country, it might be $3,000 or $4,000 a month. If a horse wins prize money, how do I get my prize money? That's quite simple. Your dividends are paid to you directly within 2 weeks from the racing authorities. But out of that, you must pay your trainer 10% and the jockey also takes 5%. So you end up with 85% of the purse. In addition to prize money, there can be lots of bonuses along the way also. So when you are buying a horse, you must understand what bonus schemes are available to that particular horse. What happens if something happens to my horse? I'm the owner. I've invested $10,000 or $200,000 into a horse. If the horse gets injured and can't race anymore, am I covered? That depends on you as an individual. You can elect to insure your horse. You must pay a premium, and if the horse can't race anymore, you can be covered by insurance. Can be. Make sure you read the fine print. Not all horses are covered for certain things. So, can you take out insurance on a horse? Yes. Does it cost money? Yes. Now, owning a horse can be so much fun. You need to determine is that your makeup, because going to the races by yourself, owning a horse, may not be fun for you. That's where you may lean on buying a share. But if you're an investor and you want to get into the industry and you want to own horses outright, well, this could be for you. Okay, so I've bought a horse outright, whether it's a yearling or a racehorse that's up and going. Whose decision is it now to select a trainer, what state it races in, where it adjusts? Well, now the decision comes down to you. If you're new to the industry, again, I do recommend getting advice from a bloodstock agent. But yes, you will select a trainer. You will need to pick a trainer that suits you. If you want a lot of communication, if you want to know what's happening with the horse, if you want to place a bet on the horse, there are trainers that provide information suited to that type of owner. There are trainers that have poor communication but have a proven track record for winning. You need to determine, are you getting into the industry because you want good communication or because you want a result? Some trainers do cover both, but not all. So do your research because you don't want to be disappointed. It is a lot of money you're investing when owning horses on your own. Do I still get the networking opportunities? Do I determine where it races, when it races? Can I tell the trainer what needs to be done? Well, telling the trainer where the horse needs to race is the beginning of the end. You're engaging a professional, you're trusting his judgment and his expertise to let him do the job. So do not get involved in telling a trainer how to do their job. If you have a favourite jockey, can I put him on board? My advice is allow the trainer to guide what jockey is best suited to your horse. The trainer wants to win just as much as you do, if not more. So my advice is let them do their job. So what type of person do I need to be to own a horse outright? You need to be quite financially secure because it does cost a lot of money. You need to be a risk taker. And does it allow me to network? Given I'm owning the horse outright by myself, am I going to be there by myself at the races? A lot of people will buy a horse because you can still take people to the races. You can network through business. You can take clients to the races. So this does lend itself to other openings. Me personally, I've had both. I've had shares and horses in their entirety. But if you're like me, or hopefully you're not like me, well, actually, God help you if you're like me. But me personally, I like to have full control over the horse. So owning a horse in its entirety suits me best. So now we're moving into more the commercial side. You could be part of an investment group, a syndicate group, but I like to call it an investment group. This is where you might reach out to a bloodstock agent who are already established. They will put a group of people together and you can invest in certain percentages in the group. Sometimes they have a criteria where a minimum investment is required and they'll put a pool of horses together. Sometimes they're targeting stallion propositions. Sometimes they're looking for mares that might get black type, so they have a better residual value. But a lot of them are focused around stallions and stallion propositions. So the capital required is a lot more than just owning a horse in its entirety because stallions are valued at a lot of money. Going to a yearling sale and buying the top colts of a sale costs a lot of money. Going to buy the top 10 colts in a sale could cost $15, $20 million. So you've got the option to buy 5%, 10%, depending on what the bloodstock agent or the group allows. The investment is quite large. Sometimes the money's up front. Sometimes there's stages. But the returns can be extremely fruitful. As far as the returns go on a monthly basis, you still will receive funds when the horse wins. There's still prize money. You're still eligible for the bonus schemes, but you're not really looking for that. What you're actually looking for is for a payday at the end of that horse's racing career. So you might go and buy a stallion for $700,000, and if it lands and it ends up winning a group race, well, it might be worth $5 million, $10, $20 million at the end of its racing career. So the dividends can be quite big. The ongoing expenses, they're still there. Hopefully, if they select the right horse, whether it's a stallion or a mare, that you're covered. The expenses are covered by the prize money. So the ongoing expenses may be covered. Being part of this investment group or the syndicate group, how much involvement do you have as an owner or as an investor? At this level, you're relying on the bloodstock agent that's put it together or whoever's heading up the group, whether it's a syndication group or typically it is a bloodstock agent. So my advice is you're investing and you're relying on their judgment once again. They're experts in the field. Let them call the shots. This isn't where you're going to select the trainer, where the horse races, what jockey's on board, because number one, the welfare of the animal will always come first. Number two, you've purchased a horse for a reason, for an end goal, where we're going to get black type if it's a mare or a stallion. Black type meaning, it's won a group race or a listed race, where you're going to potentially set this horse up, given it's a colt, for a group win, and then it has a breeding life after racing. So it can go to stud. So staying out of those decisions is what you'll be doing. You'll be leaving it up to the expert. Would I personally get involved in an investment group or a syndication group? Definitely. It's a yes from me, because you're leaning on bloodstock agents who have got a proven track record. They've got connections within the industry. They know what stallions are hot. They know how to read a pedigree page. They know the ins and outs of yearlings they're buying or racehorses they're buying. They've got connections with the farm. Going to the yearling sales, these guys are well informed about what horses are sound, what horses have got a lot of potential. So you would definitely invest in these type of investment groups if you are looking at getting involved in racing at that next level. So now we're going to cover off leasing a horse. Yes, it does exist. You can lease a horse. Now, I've never done it, but it is quite an astute way to get in, because if you're the owner of a horse and you don't want to pay the ongoing expenses, whether you've bred it, purchased it, you can lease that horse out, whether it's for 2 years, 3 years, whatever the leasing agreement is. And as an owner of that horse, you still own the horse outright. You're entitled to 30% of the prize money, and you have no ongoing expenses whatsoever. So when do I get paid? If I own the horse and I lease it out to a trainer, when do I get paid my 20 or 30%? And what type of dividends are in it for me? Well, leasing that horse out means that you don't have any expenses, and that 30% of the prize money will get paid directly to you within a 2-week period. The dividends, let's just say that horse secures black type and wins a group race, or it ends up being a stallion, and it's worth a lot of money in 2 or 3 years' time. When the lease is finished, you get that horse back because you still own it, because you've only leased that horse out. So the dividends are all yours upon completion, and 20 or 30% of prize money along the way is also yours. It's quite a good way to own a horse if you want to get involved in owning horses but not having to carry all the expenses. While leasing a horse out, can I insure it? That's a definite and highly recommended. When a trainer or owner or ownership group have taken on that lease of your horse, you cannot get involved in what jockey is on your horse, where the horse is racing. You can put special conditions in a lease, but the idea is to let somebody take control of that horse, and then you get your horse back at the completion of a lease. So as far as networking goes, if you lease your horse out to somebody, can you still go to the events? Black and white, the answer is no. If you get invited by the new ownership group, knock yourself out, head to the track. But they're taking on all the expenses, the fun is theirs. Now, what type of person is this best suited to? I see it as a conservative owner, someone who doesn't want to pay the day-to-day expenses, but reap the rewards if you have success. So probably the conservative owner is best suited to this type of agreement. So getting involved in horse racing is so much fun. You need an investment though as well. You need to be calculated on how much money you're prepared to invest in this industry, because it can eat you up and spit you out. But on the flip side, there's money to be made as well. My saying is, invest or spend what you can afford to lose, whether it's gambling, buying a yearling, or a ready-made racehorse. Spend what you can afford to lose. If you have a win along the way, that's a bonus. But if you stick by those rules, you'll have a good time and you're not going to go home and get divorced like I did. No, that was a bit too much.